Hey, it's John at Tinderbox Arts. It's brutally hot and humid here today, so instead of going for a ride, I think I'm going to focus on some maintenance on the Triumph Bonneville. In particular, I want to focus on the chain because this is the original chain on this bike, and it's a 2010 model, and I'm approaching 25,000 miles. So it is at the point where, wear might be an issue. Now, I do keep this chain clean and lubed, and it is garage kept, so it looks pretty good. But after 25,000 miles, we could have some wear. In particular today, I'm going to measure the chain stretch. Now that term is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not that the metal itself is stretching and causing the chain to lengthen. Instead, what we're really measuring is wear. The way these pins connect to the links, there can be wear there over time, and the chain will lengthen and become so bad at some point that it could actually come apart. So we want to measure the stretch is what it's called, but we're really measuring wear. Now the recommendation from Triumph is to measure over 20 links the distance, and if it exceeds 321 millimeters, well, the chain is too worn and it's time to replace it. So that's easy enough to do, but there are a couple of details that are important. For one thing, we want to measure across the top of the chain because we have a sprocket on this side and a sprocket on this side, and we want that tension to stretch the chain as much as possible. So we're not going to measure the bottom. However, we are going to pull down on the bottom because if I get in right here, you can see when I push down on the bottom, the top of the chain has some slack that's taken up. So we need to make sure we take up that slack so we're getting an accurate measurement. So the first thing I want to do is remove this chain guard because in order to get to the top, that's in the way. There's a Torx head bolt right here, and another bolt right down in here, which actually looks like an Allen head for some reason. So we'll remove those and get that chain guard out of the way. Now, it's not strictly necessary to take the sprocket cover off. However, it does give you a chance to check that this sprocket nut right here is tight. Occasionally these do come loose, and if it is loose, then your sprocket's a little bit loose and you're not going to be getting an accurate measurement, plus obviously you want to tighten that up. So this is a good opportunity to check that and make sure it is tight. Alright, so I got a little block of wood wedged in here so the chain up top is tight. Now how am I going to measure this? Well, rather than trying to use a ruler or a tape measure or something like that, which is difficult to get in there and to read because it's just tight corners in there, what I'm going to do is I just took a piece of scrap aluminum. You could use anything, a piece of scrap wood, even cardboard. And what I did was, in the general vicinity of where I'm going to be, I put some blue tape on there. And you'll see I made a mark right here. That's going to be my 0 mark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to count over to where I need to be and make a mark with a pen here. All right. Then I'm going to move the chain about 1/3 of the way, make another mark, and then do it one more time and make a 3rd mark. For that reason, I'll have an average measurement of the chain, and I can now take this back out of that tight area there and measure it where I can actually see it. And to be clear about what we're counting, we're really going to be counting the pins. Now, Triumph called it links. Well, I'm going to be counting the pins. So I'll start at number 1 pin, wherever that happens to be, and then I'll count over 21 pins, make my measurement, and move the chain, make my 2nd measurement, move the chain, make my 3rd measurement, each time counting over by pin. All right, I've taken my measuring stick now out of the chain area where it's easier to see, and I have a ruler set up in millimeter scale, And that's my starting mark right there. If I come over here, you can see there are 2 marks that I made. The first 2 measurements were identical. The third one was slightly longer, a millimeter and a half, something like that. So I'll use the longest measurement in this case, which is 320 millimeters or 32 centimeters, and that is within spec. So even though I have a chain with 25,000 miles on it, it's still good. Now you may ask me what was the original measurement. I really don't know, but I'm definitely within spec here. So that's good news, but there are other things I'm going to check. I'm going to clean this chain up, even though it looks pretty good right now. And when I'm doing that, I can turn the wheel or spin the wheel and just check to make sure that none of these links are binding up at all. When you turn the wheel, you can feel sometimes if there's a little stickiness or a little lumpiness to the chain, and you can also move the chain back and forth when there is some play to it, and just check that any of the links are binding up. That would be another reason to replace the chain. And of course, the final thing I'm going to do is to make sure that this play is not too much, so I will check that. It looks a little bit much right now, so I'll probably have to back off that and make a change there. But other than that, this chain still looks like it's got life in it, so that's good news for me.